being here. This is not, like, I feel really loud.
You probably don't have to use that.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I don't. This is not like a really involved, deep scientific discussion, okay? So I just want to warn you about that. What I'm really excited about today is the opportunity to meet with all of you and to have a discussion, because I feel like you're a very informed audience about climate change, extremely informed. And so I don't think we need to rehash the climate science. But, you know, we're going to be focused on resilience. What is resilience? What is it when we're talking about community resilience? I want to tell you about a project that I'm involved with the city on and other communities throughout the southeastern United States, preparing sustainability directors for municipalities to embark on community resilience planning in their respective communities. And but really narrow in and focus on Fayetteville and our local area and what we know about our community, what we are doing right in terms of making our community more resilient, and then you know, what we still need to work on. And so I'm looking forward to us having a conversation about that. As far as the program that I just told you about with the cities throughout the southeastern United States, it's called PREP, and that stands for Partnership for Resilience and Empowered Planning. PREP. And I'm about to go to Orlando on Tuesday morning, and it's just a very quick trip. We're going to be there Tuesday and part of Wednesday, and turn around and come right back to Fayetteville. But it's a workshop, and we're all going to meet. We've already had one workshop. And so I'll be meeting with the sustainability directors, and I'm most excited to talk to them about talking to you all. So this is really the first step in that process. So first of all, I like to start with this. Some of you may have already seen this because I've used this in other presentations, but it's a wise adage. And this really speaks to that we are in a time, and we are becoming more and more in a time where we're going to have to adapt, you know, and human beings throughout our evolutionary history have been pretty good at adaptation. But it seems, you know, now with climate change being what it is, we've never had to adapt quite on the scale that we're needing to now globally. But resilience in general is a term that if you just Google the term, you know, you're going to see it pop up in many different domains. One of the ones that it's used most often, this term, is in the social sciences. And it pertains to individuals bouncing back from personal traumas. And I actually have a master's in counseling, and we use the term a lot in the social sciences with regard to that. And there's actually things that you can do to help children be more resilient, you know, and be more resilient as children, be more resilient as adults. And there's certainly things that we can do as adults as well. And a lot of it has to do with having strong connections and ties and social support. And that goes right into community resilience because it's all interconnected. So you're going to see it in those realms. I think the term, in terms of systems thinking, really started in the ecological sciences with scientists named Holling, and I actually have a slide about that from Canada. So in the ecological sciences, you know, we're looking at stressors to an ecosystem, a disruption, and how that system bounces back. And can the system bounce back, you know, and still resemble its original ecosystem, or is it going to bounce back as a totally new thing? You know, is it going to completely be transformed? In the ecological sciences, we say if it's completely transformed, then it wasn't really resilient. It was basically wiped out, and it had, you know, nature had to start over there. But that's not always a bad thing when it comes to community science, because sometimes, you know, you're not completely wiped out, but you're transformed. And you can actually bounce back better, you know. You can learn, become more diverse, maybe become more accepting of one another, learn more about your community, and then you're more prepared for community traumas in the future. There's economic resilience, you'll see it in those terms, cultural resilience, and also corporations now are really starting to think more about supply chain resilience, and that extreme weather events can affect product change. So they're looking at their bottom line in terms of supply chain. Where are their supplies coming from, and are they going to need to reroute the supply chain, or is it better to try to work with the communities where those supplies are coming through and help those communities be more resilient so that their supply chain will not be as impacted. And then community resilience, that's really what we're focusing on today. And that can be resilience to kind of entrenched change that's occurring. Maybe a community is suffering from drought, and that's affecting their economy because they have agriculturally based economy. It could be a rural community. Or maybe, everything was going just fine, but then there was a severe flood that came through, So it could be kind of a long-standing trauma that's happening that they're, you're looking at assessing how resilient the community is, or it could be something, that comes along that's pretty extreme, and the term applies to both scenarios. So C.S. Hollings, a scientist that I was speaking about earlier, and this is kind of like the original definition that I've been able to find in the literature relevant to resilience in general. The amount of disturbance that an ecosystem can withstand without changing self-organized processes and structures. And I think it's okay to, kind of think of a community as an ecosystem too. Maybe not in the strictest sense. We tend to divide out that taxonomy, but we're animals, so. And we're intimately interwoven with our natural world and dependent on it. So this is from the Resilience Alliance, and there's a lot of different ways of compartmentalizing or thinking about or processing the resilience and what goes into it, and remembering that it is all interconnected. It's funny, Marco was just saying that to me, but our environment is interconnected with our economy, our society is connected to our ecology and our economy, and we can't, there's not one without the other. They're all affecting each other, and that's especially true, and it just seems much more evident when we're in a crisis. Then, it becomes much more obvious to us. But if we can remember that beforehand and anticipate it and plan, we'll be much better off, not just when the crisis hits, but just in our day-to-day interactions with one another. So I like this one. I think it's just one way of conceptualizing it, and it's from the Resilience Alliance. There is so much out there now on resilience. It's really become a new buzzword. But I think, it's going to be long-standing because we need it. And now, if you've explored the topic at all, you'll see that the Obama administration, the federal government, is doing a lot in the realm of resilience. And there was concern, really, a couple of years ago, I think, I heard this often in sustainability circles, that now that we're talking about resilience and adaptation, we've given up on mitigation, basically. And I always thought, no, that can't be right, because if you really look at the science and where we're at in terms of climate, we're already having to adapt, because the change, the horse is already out of the gate. And certainly we still need to have mitigation, and I just think of mitigation as part of resilience. It's got to be part of our resilience planning. So it's always got to be a step that's in there, and not think of these two terms as like dichotomous or oil and water, and I think that's happening now. It's like as time goes by, now you can start to see that the sustainability folks and the resilience folks are talking. We're not different, we shouldn't be in different camps and be thought of that way. So I think that's evolving. That's just something that I've observed anecdotally. Hi, Aubrey.
Well, this is future shock. As far as we need to realize that this is future shock. It's now. In other words, that we're having to deal with this like maybe the steakhouses out west in the Mormon set up where they have a reserved place for each community or each part of each community and so forth. This is an interesting concept.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, I mean, happening now, as we're all aware. Arkansas, we've already noticed quite a bit of change in the southeast to our climate in the last, 10 to 30 years. You tend to think of climate change in chunks of 30 years. That's kind of how the climatologists do it. But we'll talk a little bit later about what's going on in Arkansas relative to those changes. But you can see metabolic flows, that's like our agriculture, production lines, the economy, all of that could go in metabolic flows. I like that term. I guess I was a dietitian for 10 years and it speaks to me. But governance networks, so our institutions, and resilience is it's a global kind of thing because it's a global issue, just like climate change. But really, we work on it at the local level. So a lot of times it's municipalities, in terms of government, that are really at the front lines of resilience issues. But the federal government in the United States is putting out tools now to help local communities, start to develop their community resilience plans, and that's a really good thing. And more is coming out all the time, really, from the Obama administration. So, anytime you look at it.
Can you give us a couple examples?
Yes, I will actually. And in the built environment, ecosystem services, and then social dynamics. And later on, after we get through all the slides, when we start having our brainstorming session, that's why I have these divided up in this way. But metabolic flows would be like managed systems. And there's other ways, of conceptualizing it, but, this one works for me. Does this make sense to you guys? Okay. All of this has, is helpful to think of in terms of systems theory. And this just goes back to what I was saying earlier about everything being interconnected. And, if we make one decision at the municipal level, maybe to put in low impact development curves, that could have some other impact that we didn't anticipate. So it's just thinking about, not just the obvious in all things. So, and I had a little video that I was going to show you, but that's okay. It's not leaking yet. And, this is just why we're doing this. Everybody's probably seen this diagram. I don't know why. It usually goes on up, but it's not working. This is from Al Gore's presentation that he does. But just talking about greenhouse gases and carbon dioxide increasing, really exponentially in our atmosphere at this point, and this is going back 800,000 years. And what it's showing is that as there have been carbon dioxide fluctuations in the atmosphere, you can see there that the temperature increases and decreases with those fluctuations. So there's just a direct correlation. This is something that everybody's already seen. This is why we're talking about community resilience. I mean, and it could be resilience to an economic shock, etc. But we're focused mostly on climate stressors because they're going to have an effect on everything. Our natural systems and our economy, are all interwoven. And this again, I just include this. This is kind of the standard definition where sustainability and the concept of sustainability got started with Gro Harlem Brundtland, who is an amazing woman. And there again, this is just to say that sustainability and resilience are not in competition with each other, and just because we're talking about resilience doesn't mean that we've given up on sustainability. We talked about that. I'm going to read this to you because it doesn't look like it's really easy for you guys to read, but how many of you are familiar with what the Rockefeller Foundation is doing with their 100 Resilient Cities initiative?
You want to talk about it, even though
I
You know
haven't,
what you have mentioned?
I don't know about it.
Social housing.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, and now I think since the climate march in New York, now the Rockefeller family has divested. Isn't that right? Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
From fossil fuels. But before they did that, they cobbled together a large sum and started a grant process. They're doing, I think it's 33 cities at a time. So I think they're in their second round right now. So they're the next 33. They're working with 33 and they've added another 33. Basically what they're doing is cities from around the world can apply to be a part of this program, and they are funded to have a chief resilience officer. It's like a permanent staff position for their community to assist them with community resilience planning. And they, you know, give them all kinds of information and like educate the community and help them with funding for their resilience initiatives that they need based on what the climate stressors in their area are, and they help them do the assessment. So it's really amazing. And of course they try to make sure that that CRO is someone from that local community. And the really neat thing about it is that they're getting these 100 cities to communicate with each other about the barriers that they're overcoming and what they're learning. And they're getting, you know, communities that have similar climate stressors to work together to encourage each other and to learn from each other. So this is like a worldwide effort, and it's really encouraging to see something like this happening. So if you just Google Rockefeller 100 Resilient Cities Initiative, you know, there is so much out there on that one initiative, and they have a blog, and they put out kind of like wise, you know, just wise nuggets of learning from the communities, you know, like things that have happened in the communities that they've already started working with. And it's just, I don't know, it's a lot of fun. So you guys should probably look that up. I wanted you to know about it. But I really like their definition for resilience. It's the ability of a system, an entity, a community, or a person to withstand shocks while still maintaining its essential functions and to recover quickly and effectively. Simply put, resilience is what enables people to survive, adapt, and thrive in the face of acute shocks and chronic stresses. And then what we've learned from our initiative work over the past several years is that both in good times and in times of stress, resilient systems share and demonstrate certain core characteristics. And I'll tell you about those core characteristics. But you can see there, these are the ones that they've identified specifically with cities: constant learning, rapid rebound, limited or safe failure, flexibility, and spare capacity. So it's the same lessons that Rockefeller has learned in the past about resilient systems in general.
Could you read those again?
Yes. Constant learning, rapid rebound, limited or safe failure, flexibility, and spare capacity.
And spare what? I'm sorry.
Spare capacity.
Oh, okay.
There's some other terms that they use sometimes that mean the same thing, and I've got another slide about that pretty soon. You know, so these are some of the things that if you're just kind of in community resilience circles that you're talking about community resilience, these are the things that seem to come up a lot about stormwater management, especially in this area, you know, places where there's extreme flooding. What's going on in the southeast, and you can see this in the National Climate Assessment, there's we're facing more intermittent extreme changes between extended droughts or periods, you know, without enough water, and then we'll have like a torrential downpour. So that's more what we're facing. That's one of the things that's going on in the southeast. And then there's just this kind of general unpredictability factor relative to the weather that's going on in the southeast that's not so much the case in other parts of the country. So we really do have some unique circumstances given our original biome and how it's changing. there was there was the effect, I know that you all heard of this, that went on in the Southeast. It's pretty much gone now, but there was this period where it looked like the southeastern United States wasn't warming as much as the rest of the world, relatively speaking. But it's pretty much gone away, and we're predicted to warm 4 to 6 more degrees Fahrenheit in the next 100 years. So, strengthening local economies and food systems, local food movement, you hear about that a lot as a way to help make a community more resilient. Of course, emergency response and disaster preparedness. Social cohesion and, again, mitigation. Social cohesion is a factor that I'm really interested in studying. That's what I'm thinking I'm probably going to gear my research towards in this environmental dynamics program. There's already research that shows that the more socially cohesive a community is, the more resilient it is when there is a shock or a trauma to the system. And so I'm really interested in looking at, well, what is it? How do you measure social cohesion? What does that mean? How can you build social cohesion in communities? Looking at communities where people are just more isolated and not working together, not communicating with each other very, very much, or maybe it's very important to know your neighbors, for instance, because you're gonna know a lot more about your little neighborhood community's assets if there is a shock or a trauma to that system, and you're going to know what the vulnerabilities in that community are too. Then if nobody's talking to each other, you could even get together in advance and make plans, and look at what's coming down the pike, what is happening, But if you're not looking at each other, if you're not interacting with one another, it's going to be a lot harder on that community. So that's social cohesion. We can talk about that more, but I just kind of wanted to tell about. Let me see if I can get that.
Get these lights off. Yeah.
Should we turn it off?
Is it too dark or too?
The light glaring out the screen.
Okay. Too much light, huh? That's why we put the.
There you go.
Oh, is that better? Okay. So
Is
this
there a
is.
way we can have some light, ambient light here, so we can continue to take the photos up here? More switches back there.
Wolf and Tyler.
Here's Marco. I bet he's going to help us.
I guess I want to light on the stage the whole time.
I think so. We don't want light up here, but we want light out there.
No problem.
There we go.
Oh, that's much better. Thank you.
Very nice.
Yay! Our hero.
Thank you.
So this is a little bit of what I was promising you earlier about some of the stuff that's coming out from the White House. And this is very recent. This came out October the 8th. And this is live, like I just followed the link. This is really focused on natural systems and ecosystem services. But there's a lot of information here about what kind of support systems the administration is trying to put in to protect natural and ecosystem kind of services. And
What would we Google here, Joanna, to get the?
I just usually Google community resilience Obama administration.
Okay.
What was at the top of the page? Council on Environment.
Yes, and a lot of
That was
their
in it?
initiatives are coming out from the Council on Environmental Quality.
And do you think that would get us directly to the
Yeah, I mean, you don't
mailing
even.
list?
Yeah, you don't even have to do that, Council on Environmental Quality. If you just do community resilience,
Okay.
Obama administration, or White House.
All right.
Fact sheet.
And I know that the administration is working with a lot of different NGOs and nonprofits right now to develop tools for communities so that communities, number one, understand what climate stressors are predicted for their area based on climate modelers' work. And they're putting out these new mapping tools too, so they can look up information about their area or their state or their region and they're actually putting out kind of a handbook soon that is going to talk about a process for doing community resilience planning, and I'm going to learn more about that next week, because the other consultant on the PREP program is with the National Environmental Modeling and Analysis Center, and NEMAC is actually one of the many organizations that the administration is contracting with to put these tools together for local communities. But one of the things I discovered, it's down here, I think I actually put it on a slide for you all. It's not on this one. But you know, you can, I've got it on another slide, but you can go down through here and see what they're doing. Private and public commitments to support resilient natural systems, targeting blue carbon, that's the ocean sequestration, restoring Galveston Bay estuary. So some of them are really targeted and specific, and some of them are more general tools for the country. Creating a mapping tool for forest carbon. Some other interesting ones in here. And they've got a lot of other stuff too that's not just focused on natural systems.
Have they talked about, because I've just been reading about this, capturing CO2 from the air and then making products with it, finding a way to sequester this product? Did they mention that at all?
I haven't seen that. I mean, as far as what's coming out of the administration, I haven't heard a whole lot about
Can
that.
I read one real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
Restoring forests in the lower Mississippi Delta with support from the Walton Family Foundation and McKnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you read it?
Or
I can read it?
You go ahead.
Okay. With support from the Walton Family Foundation and the McKnight Foundation, the Trust for Public Land will deliver outreach and technical assistance to private landowners interested in restoring carbon-rich bottomland forests to flood-prone agriculture lands in the lower Mississippi Delta. This announcement puts the Trust on track to meet its target to achieve an additional 3,750 acres of lower Mississippi private lands reforestation and permanently conserve 3,200 acres of bottomland forest over the next 2 years, leading to more than 2.1 million tons of carbon dioxide sequestration and storage, the equivalent of taking 442,000 cars off the road for 1 year. So what do you think of that?
Would that be in Arkansas or Mississippi?
Well, yeah, it'll be part of Arkansas.
And you think that means tree planting? Did it explain what it is? It seems like it would have to be tree planting.
Yeah, I would think so. So that's getting pretty close to home.
Too bad they dozed off all those fields to make extra row crops right after World War II. I remember seeing a tremendous dozing in southeast Arkansas. Of course, Arkansas County was where I was living and so forth. And now we have to put it back.
That's right.
We have to stop that diamond pipeline going through a wildlife area.
Yeah.
Threaten that area.
I know. And those were probably really old